Welcome back to the Be a Man podcast, where we encourage men to be better men. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the Be a Man podcast. Tonight or today, whenever you are listening, I have a unique opportunity to talk with Andrew Dollar. It was a great conversation. We got into faith, into family, into his background in law enforcement, and just the opportunities he had while he was there on the force, and what God is really just doing in his life right now. It was a really good conversation that we get into some very touchy subjects, some hard subjects. But I think as men, if you're listening to this, I think you're going to resonate. I think you are going to see the value in them. And my hope is that it will encourage you to become a better man. I will definitely drop all his contact info in the description, in the bio of this episode. But you have any questions, anything comes up, please don't feel bad or sorry or any of those things. Feel free to reach out to me, reach out to him. We'd love to have a further conversation with you as we try to encourage men to be better men in this life. So with that, let's get into it. All right. Welcome to the podcast, Andrew. I appreciate you coming on. I've been looking forward to this. Introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do? What's your family like? All those types of cool things.
Well, my name is Andrew Dollar, just like the money. All right. And I am 41 years old. I'm originally from Rome, Georgia. And so I'm a Georgia boy, but I live in South Carolina, just outside of Spartanburg. And been married going on 20 years. My wife, Debbie, and I have been married for 19 years. And that's a huge blessing and a miracle in itself. And so I'm thankful to say that my wife and I are in a better place now than we've ever been. So I'm incredibly thankful for that. But don't have any children other than furry four-legged children. I wish I did. I always thought that I would be growing up. I always thought I would be I thought about being a father a lot growing up, and but that's just not the deck I was dealt. And so sometimes that's a little bit of a struggle. But yeah. So I have been, I worked in law enforcement for about 12 years, and I'm not currently working for an agency. I'm looking at a couple of different agencies, a couple of different possibilities as far as getting back into it. But I'm working right now, of all things, I'm working pest control. And
Cool.
I'll be honest, I never dreamed at 41 years old that I would be working pest control. That's but I'm thankful to have a job, and we can talk about that this a little bit more. But I will tell you that whether I'm doing pest control or in uniform doing policing or anything else, man, it's just it's a process of trying to find ways of leaving people better than I found them.
Hey, that's pretty cool. Dive into that some more. Like, what do you hope to accomplish with these interactions, and what do you mean by that?
Well, so I would have to start by just saying that God got a hold of my heart at a pretty early age. I don't have the testimony of I was a bad guy, and I had all these like really terrible issues and these horrible destructive lifestyle. And then God got a hold of my heart and drastically changed me. That's not my testimony. My testimony is more, God got a hold of my heart, I guess, sometime between my freshman and sophomore year. I mean, before that, I was just a good kid, but and I was already a believer. But God really got a hold of my heart between my freshman and sophomore year of high school. And I decided at that point that I was going to spend my life in whatever way possible, no matter what I was doing. I was going to spend my life truly trying to show people who Jesus was, and show people the love of Jesus, no matter, what I was doing. And so, really and truly, that's just been my heart for a long time. And before I got into law enforcement, I was doing a lot of youth ministry related things. I was working as a counselor at a therapeutic wilderness program for troubled teenagers. And then I got into law enforcement in 2008. And when that happened, I started working as a detention officer in the beginning. And so God kind of took me from the youth ministry, being more focused on young people, and shifted me over to being more focused on men, grown men. And so ever since then, that's just been the process. And so I was a detention officer for a few years. I was a school resource officer for a few years, which took me back to working with young people, but just in a little bit different way. And then I worked on the road on patrol for a few years. So, but for me, law enforcement I tell people that, for me, wearing the uniform and the patrol car, it was a vessel, it was a vessel, and it was it was the way that God put me in front of people on their worst day, when they were very hurt and very vulnerable. And it's really been my mission field, and yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. I've met a few officers, my cousin included. Just he views it in very much the same way as you do, I think, as well, just as a opportunity to help people. Because, like, you see people at their worst, and sometimes at what they think is their best, and it's just an opportunity for you to share Christ in a unique way. Have you had any opportunities like that just stick out in your mind that you just think that was pretty cool?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I will say that probably more so than anything, when I was working in the jail and the county jail, I had so many opportunities to speak life and encouragement to these guys. And I used to, when I was making my rounds, especially when I was working night shift, most of the inmates would go to sleep around 11:30, midnight. And as I was making my rounds throughout the night after that, occasionally I would see an inmate who was still up. A lot of times they're reading a book, or they're writing a letter, or drawing or something like that. And I would knock on the window of the door. I would knock on the door and kind of get their attention. And I would always look at them and say, "Hey, are you okay?" And of course, the initial reaction is, "Yeah, man, I'm good." And then I would usually say, "No, really, are you okay?" And a lot of times at that point, inmates would come over, and they would have something that was on their mind or on their heart. And let me just say this too: this wasn't immediate. Like, you built a relationship and a rapport with these guys over a period of time, and that takes time, and that takes being very strategic about the way you conduct yourself with inmates. And it really truly was a very clear example of this saying, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, kind of thing. And so a lot of times that would spark an opportunity for conversations, late night conversations. And I remember a guy coming up to me one day, in the jail. And he said, "Hey, Dollar." And I said, "Yeah, man, what's up?" And he looked around like he didn't want other people to see, or hear what he was saying to me. And he said, "Hey, I just want to tell you," he kind of leaned in. He said, "I just want to tell you, thank you for talking to me the other night." And I said, "Yeah, man, absolutely. Glad to." And he said, "No, man." He said, "You don't understand." He said, "You're the only person who's ever talked to me like you believe I can be better than I am."
Wow.
And so that always stuck out in my mind. That that's something that was very, and I don't even know what I said, to be honest. But I'll never forget that. And another story I just want to tell you is, a few years after I worked in the jail, I was on the road working patrol for a different agency, and it was late. It was January. It was cold. It was sleeting, about to start snowing. It was probably 1 o'clock in the morning or so, and I'm going down this dark road, and I see this guy walking down the road, and he's muscled up, and he's covered in tattoos, and he's slick bald head, and he doesn't have a shirt on. And that's already a red flag. I mean, it's about to start snowing, and this guy's not wearing a shirt.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, man, do I need to call backup? And but I didn't call backup, but I put my scene lights on my patrol car. Yeah. And I'm blinding him with my lights, and he's and I put my window down. And now let me tell you about this guy. I recognized him at this point. I recognized this guy at this point, and I realized that this is a bad dude. This is a guy that I've dealt with in the past in the jail. And he was a white supremacy Nazi skinhead, just hated everybody and anybody, and wanted to fight everybody and anybody, and had a really, really violent tendency about him. And still, I'm not calling backup. And so I put my window down, and I said, "Hey, man, what are you doing out here?" And he says, he can't see me. He doesn't know it's me yet.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Who is that?" And I said, "It's Officer Dollar." And he says, "Officer Dollar?" He said, "Oh my gosh." And he starts like walking to my car like pretty quick. And I said, whoa. Stay right here. I said, "I'll come to you." And so I got out of my car, and I walked over to him, and I said, "Man, what are you doing out here?" And he says, "Man," he starts saying, "You don't understand. This is crazy. You don't understand." And I said, "What is it, man? What don't I understand? And why are you out here? I mean, it's about to start snowing. You ain't got no shirt. Where's your shirt at? And he just keeps saying, "Man, you don't understand. This is crazy." And I said, What is it?" And he said he just got out of prison 3 days earlier. And he told me that while he was in prison, he gave his life to the Lord. Huh. And he said while he was in prison, he thought about the stuff that he and I had talked about.
Yeah.
Now, what you have to understand here is I don't remember talking to this dude.
Yeah.
I don't remember having the conversation with this dude, but he told me, he's like, "Man, you don't understand. I remember all the things that you told me." Okay. And he said, "I gave my life to the Lord." And he said, "I got out 3 days ago." And he said, and he starts crying. And he says, "Man, you don't understand." He said, "Of all the people that I needed to see right now," he said, "You're the person I needed to see." He said, "Cool. You're the person." Yeah. And I was just like, this is crazy,
Yeah.
And he said, everybody, ever since he got out, everybody expects him to be the same guy that he used to be. And he said, he told me, he said, "Man, I ain't got nobody." He said, "I ain't got nobody." He said, and he was crying. He said, "I don't want to be the man that I was." He said, "I want to be like Jesus." And here's crazy, man. I'm telling you, this is crazy. He comes over and he starts he wants to hug me.
Yeah.
Now, in law enforcement, you don't let anybody in your
that's a no-no.
Yeah, you don't let anybody. But man, I'm telling you, I felt in my spirit, I said, "I got to hug this guy." I got to hug this guy. So I locked down on my weapon. I put my hand down on my gun and I locked down and I threw my arm around him. And this grown man, white supremacy, Nazi, rough, tough guy who would fight anybody, lays his head on my shoulder and sobs like a baby.
Huh.
And
that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
It was just and I ain't gonna lie, dude. I'm a very emotional person myself. I used to, when I was talking to inmates, sometimes I would have to be like, hey man, I got to go finish my scan. I'll be right back. But the real thing is I was about to start crying and I didn't want these guys to, to see me. And dude, I've just always been that way. And this guy, when he's laying his head on my shoulder and he's crying and he's saying, I ain't got nobody, man. Dude, my heart broke for him, And so anyway, those are probably two of the things that stick out the most.
Yeah, that's cool. Do you think there's more guys like that? Just maybe they come from a bad, background, bad family situation, whatever. And there's just guys that need a chance or somebody to show that they care. You think there's a lot more like that?
Yes, I do think there's a lot of guys out there like that. I've had a lot of conversations with guys that, especially if you can get them away from some of the other guys. I mean,
yeah,
we can talk about this a little bit more in depth, but I'm going to tell you, man, insecurity in men is a real problem. And there's a lot of guys out there that they end up in really bad situations and they end up being a part of things because of their own insecurities. And the insecurities generally, not all the time, but generally come from being hurt.
Yeah. Go into that some more. Yeah.
When you don't know how to stand on your own 2 feet, when you don't know how to just be your own man, you tend to be whatever other people want you to be.
Yeah.
And that's a real problem with manhood today.
Yeah. I mean, I don't feel like it was always that way. Like, as you look at history, I mean, you see these guys pioneering the country. You see these guys, fighting a revolution, all these different things throughout even just our American history. We'll just say that.
Right.
And then it's like at some point in the 1900s, that all changed. And I'm not sure. And it seems to be after World War II. Somewhere in there, it changed. And I think around the Vietnam kind of area is when you really started seeing it happen even more. But I mean, what happened? I mean, because I agree. And I think culture plays a part in it as well.
Absolutely. Of course it does. It plays a huge part in it. But I mean, working as a school resource officer, well, I mean, I saw it way before that. I saw it when I was a kid,
Yeah.
You see kids, specifically guys, more so really, I mean, it's girls too, but there's this tendency to always want to be a part of something, to want to find acceptance.
Yeah.
And man, I see young people that'll just do some really, really dumb stuff, man. Just to be accepted, And
you mean young people and teens do dumb things?
I know it's shocking. But I just feel like if a young person can know how to just be their own person and stand on their own feet and have the confidence. See, for me, I mean, I'm blessed, man. hold on just a second. Somebody's trying to call me. I should have.
Yeah, you're good.
All right.
Yeah, you're good.
So, for me, I mean, I'm just blessed because I never had the tendency to try to fit in with other people. I was my own guy, and
Yeah.
I had the confidence of knowing who I was in Christ, so I'm
Sure.
not saying that made everything great, but it definitely made things to where I didn't have the tendency to just fall into whatever everybody else was doing,
Yeah.
but it's unfortunate that I feel like a lot of men never really discover that self-confidence that comes from having the assurance of knowing who you are in Christ and aligning with that instead of having to look for all these other things to be aligned to.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say that. I mean, I've certainly dealt with my fair share of legitimately messed up, evil, bad people, but
Sure.
I've also dealt with a lot of people that they're not bad guys. They've done bad things, but they're not bad guys, and they've just, unfortunately, they've got wounds and hurt that did not properly heal, and they have the insecurities that come from that, which means that they are a little easier persuaded to get into some stuff that they shouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. I think a lot of that, the crisis, I think you could say, comes a lot from a lack of fathers in especially sons' lives. I think it affects daughters too, but in particular sons. I just remember I was talking to somebody the other day about this, just some of the things we saw back in the summer of 2020 and all those things. I'm just like, where are the dads? I mean, parents, but where are the dads in particular? Because I mean, I can look at my 2-year-old and, he'll look at his mom if his mom says no, and he'll be, he'll take her serious sometimes. But if dad tells him no, it's a whole other ball game, right? I mean, he's like, uh-oh, I messed up. There's just something about it. And if there's not a father present, it just seems like kids and then adults, teens, they just seem to go astray.
Right.
And I mean, I think it's because that's the way God designed it to be. He designed it to be, a 2-parent household, and you raise your kids yourself. But at some point we got away from that in our culture. And I'm not sure exactly when that happened, but I think we are starting to see those insecurities, those things you were talking about, starting to play out now, in much larger waves, if you will, than we've seen in the past. I mean, what do you think?
Well, absolutely. But, men are not leading their homes.
Yeah.
And men are, and I'm not saying, obviously, I'm not referring to all men.
Sure.
But I do believe that the lack of true masculine manhood, godly manhood that's the pandemic.
Yeah.
That is really and truly why our world and our culture looks the way it does.
Yeah.
And I was talking to somebody earlier, it used to be that, and I, people get sensitive when I start talking about parenting and kids because I don't have my own.
Yeah.
But I tell people, like, okay, I don't have my own children, but I was a child once. And I also have a lot of experience working with young people, both like whether it was as a counselor in a therapeutic wilderness program for troubled teenagers. I worked in a psychiatric hospital for teenagers. I did a lot of youth ministry. I was a school resource officer. I've worked with young people a lot, and I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of young people. But we used to have a long time ago, we had a culture where people understood that young people need to be corrected and redirected.
Yep.
And we had a responsibility as parents and as adults to do that. Today, you see a little bit of that, but more so you see adults, parents, they look at their kids, and whatever their kid is, whatever the child is doing, whatever they are, whatever their tendencies are, the parent has a tendency to just say, oh, well, this is just the way my kid is. This is just the way they are. And, and instead of wanting to redirect or adjust, it's a pat on the back, and they say, you know what, I love you and you're perfect the way you are. And I'm over here going, no, you're not. We're none of us are. Yeah. And exactly right. So I see so many behaviors and so many lifestyles and tendencies of young people that are just, they're not being corrected. In fact, they're being applauded. Yeah. You got parents who, instead of correcting and redirecting, I actually see parents change their own thought process and their own convictions to line up with their kids.
Yeah. I laugh because I see it too. I hear you. I do. But I mean, my 2-year-old, I just joke because, we live in a culture that tells us that he should be able to choose whether he's a boy or a girl. And we don't have to go down that route, but it applies to what we're talking about right now. I just look at him and, he'll run around the house with his, butt naked because he loves to do that when he gets out of the shower. And I'm like, and then he'll go run into the wall 5 times because he just thinks it's funny, and he'll just laugh to himself. And I'm like, and you're supposed to make those choices. I always go back.
Let me say this. We always go to, because of our culture being the way it is, we always go to the homosexuality thing. We always go to the, and it is really a problem, but let's just simplify it a little bit. Okay.
Yep.
Because everything starts small. Oh, yeah. Everything starts small. It doesn't ever start that big. So let me just say that an example of something would be, well, little Johnny, I feel bad for people named Johnny because we're always using them as an example, but
sure.
But little Johnny's just really sensitive. He's just a sensitive child. And instead of going, yeah, Johnny's sensitive, we should probably work on that.
Yep.
We should probably love Johnny enough to try to formulate a plan to try to help Johnny not be so daggone sensitive, right?
Yep.
Because we love him and we care about him.
Yep.
And so, but instead you have parents that are like, well, he's just sensitive. So, we're going to make excuses for Johnny, and we're going to applaud his sensitivity. And, we're going to use that as an excuse and as a crutch for poor behavior. And then when Johnny grows up, now Johnny's not trying as a grown man or even as a teenager, but as a grown man, he's not trying to acknowledge okay, these are the areas of my life where I need some adjustment.
Yep.
These are the areas of my life where I need some self-correction, right? Yep. These are the people that I need to surround myself with, because these are the kind of people that are going to help me acknowledge weakness, personal weakness, and move forward in a better direction, right? Johnny's not looking for that because he grew up with parents or people around him who were applauding whatever it is that he was doing.
Yep. Dude, you are speaking straight truth here. I wish more would hear this. I wish more would apply this. I always say, is it more loving just because my son likes to run out in the road? Is it more loving to just let him do what he loves to do? or is it more loving to say, no, you're not going in the road because the car is going to hit you?
Well, I think people would hear that today and they would say, oh, that's completely different because that's going to hurt him. Doing all these other things is not going to hurt him or other people. And that's where you're wrong.
Yep.
That's where there's so much deception. There's so much falsehood connected. And they go, oh, these things don't hurt my child. These things don't hurt other people. And there's so much untruth to that.
Yeah.
You know, and anyway, so
yeah.
I don't know what the question was, brother.
I don't either, but that was good. I'm glad you got on that because it needs to be said. I mean, we've got too many that just, and this may be another root of the lack of many fathers in the homes. It goes back to that. I think the family structure is broken down.
Well, it does. It definitely does. It definitely does. But you know what? I'll say this, even to the single mothers out there.
Yeah.
Just because there's not a positive male role model or a father in the picture doesn't mean that you don't have a responsibility.
Yeah, that's good.
To speak truth and to hold on to. You still have a responsibility as a mother, as a single mother, to understand that your child needs you.
Yeah. To
love them enough to correct them and to redirect them and to discipline them. Discipline is, oh man, I'm not even going to go down that road, but discipline is not a bad thing. Discipline is a good thing. There's boundaries are a good thing.
Yes.
And, but you know, when I was a school resource officer, I would have parents who would come in, and it's interesting because they would come in and they wouldn't want to talk to the counselor. They wouldn't want to talk to the social worker as often as they would want to talk to me. They would say, Officer Dollar, can I talk to you? This is what I'm dealing with my kid. And I would ask parents, I would say, well, what are you doing? And you know what they'd say? What do you mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Like, what are you doing as a parent to work on this? You know?
Yeah.
And I would say, are you taking your kids to church? And I'm surprised. I was always waiting to lose my job, you know, but, but I would be like, are you taking your kids to church? Are they involved in a youth group? No, they're not. Well, that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
That's a good place to start, right?
Yep.
What kind of, and I would say, what kind of discipline are you doing? You know, what form of discipline are you trying? Have you tried? And they would look at me like a deer in the headlights, like, what?
Yeah. What's discipline?
Yeah. Like, wait, what? I don't want my kid to not like me. Anyway, I feel like we should go a different direction here because again, you know, for me, I want to speak really more to the men. I really want to speak more to the men because than in regards to the young people. But I just have a lot of.
Oh yeah. I hear you, and this is good because guys need to hear this. I do. I think they do, and I mean, you're speaking the same things I'm speaking. You're not alone. And I appreciate it. But let's switch it and say, well, we want to see these parents, men in particular, do better, step up, live more disciplined lives, those types of things. What can guys do to become better men?
Okay, great question. So I'm going to say something, and you're, as a family man, who you love your wife, right?
Yep.
You love your kids, right?
Oh yeah.
All right. So I'm going to say something, and you may, when you hear it, you might have the same reaction that most men have when I say this. But most men, including most Christian men, spend too much time with their wife and their kids. And the reason I say that, and a lot of times when I say that, you know, men are like, what? There's no way. Like, you know, you're supposed to spend a bunch of time with your wife and your kids. And I agree with you. I agree. But what I'm saying is, if you're always spending time with your wife and your kids, and you're not being intentional about spending time with other godly men, you're not going to be able to be the man that your wife and your kids need you to be.
Yeah.
You've got to be intentional about finding other men to have fellowship with and to grow with, and you've got to have people in your life that you're intentional about spending time with, who are going to grow you and develop you so that you can be the godly man that your family needs you to be.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, what I see, and I'm not trying to point fingers, I'm just telling you what I see.
Sure.
What I see is men who they're either with their wife and their kids, or it's all, work.
Yep.
Or they're hunting, fishing, golfing.
Yeah.
And listen, I don't have a problem in the world with hobbies.
Yeah.
But you can only put so much in your cup.
Yep.
And whatever you put in your cup is what you're going to drink. And that's
good.
Also whatever you put in your cup is what you're going to have to offer your wife and your kids and other people that you're surrounded with, people at work, people. You only have so much that you can put in your cup. And whatever you fill your cup with, that's what you're putting in you. That's what you're putting in investing in other people. And so you have to be real and honest with yourself about the way you spend your time. Yeah. And I know that's a struggle. It's a struggle for me, and I don't even have kids.
Yeah.
But you can't realistically fill your cup with all of these other things when it comes to what we generally think of as hobbies. And this is where I was going to go with the sports thing. I don't have a problem with sports.
Yeah.
I like sports. I played football in high school, and I like football, but I'm just telling you, I'm never going to be that guy. And I'm not dogging anybody, but I'm never going to be that guy who's a sports fanatic.
Yeah.
I'm never going to be that guy who can tell you every statistic and all the players and who beat who and what the points were and all the rankings and statistics. And it's not that I have anything against that stuff, okay? But I can only fit so much stuff in my cup. And so if you're filling your cup with all this stuff, you got to be real with yourself about, okay, how does this apply and contribute to me as a man, but yet also my family, my kids, the people in my community?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I hear you. I think we need to prioritize that community aspect more. And that's something I think all guys have to learn at some point, because it is hard to juggle all those different responsibilities. And there's seasons in life where it's a lot harder than other times, I think. But if we're not getting, we have to have guys that we can go to battle with, I think. And that's how I like to put it a lot, because we need one another, because my wife can't fully understand exactly what I'm going through, the male mind, if you will, but other guys can. They can understand the struggle. They can understand the fight. They can understand the pressure that society, and I think we ourselves put on ourselves just to do better, be better, be the best man we can be. I agree completely with what you're saying here. I think it's good.
But do you ever feel like what you just said, you ever feel like guys go, man, I'm doing the best I can? Well, but are you though? And I'm not trying to be condescending. I'm not trying to be judgmental. I'm just saying, I'm only saying what I have to ask myself every day. Am I being real with myself about, am I really doing the best that I can? Well, I can tell you right now, brother, there's not a single day that goes by where if I'm honest with myself, that I can honestly and truly say that I'm doing the best that I can. That's a big lie, dude. It's a lie.
Yeah.
And I feel like we as men are really, really good at lying to ourselves and making excuses.
Yeah.
Instead of being honest with ourselves. Dude, I do it every day.
Yeah.
You know, and so, you know.
So how do you fight against it? How do you fight against that? Because I agree.
Well, at first, I mean, the first thing is just acknowledging it. Like I just did. You know, you got to acknowledge, like, nah, I'm not doing the best that I can. You know, and like let me hear you say it, right? Like I gotta say it. Like I want to hear you. I want to hear you say, nah, I'm not doing the best that I can, right? Yeah. And then I want to hear you say, okay, so what are you filling your cup with, right? Like, let's be honest about it. What you putting in your cup?
Yeah.
All right. And then you can, at that point, you go, okay, what do you need to take out of your cup? Like, I'm not trying to be oversimplified, but really and truly, I mean,
it's true.
Don't make things hard that ain't got to be hard, right?
Yeah. 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 I mean, you're exactly right. I think that's good. I mean, I think acknowledging faults is a hard thing for any man to do. I think.
Absolutely.
And so I agree with you. That's the first step. And then filling your cup. That's a good point. I hadn't thought about it like that before, but I think guys will be able to relate to that very easily, because I think we all fill our cup with a lot of things. It's just sometimes it's a lot of water instead of something good, you know, and instead of sweet tea or something like that. We waste it on things that aren't as beneficial, I guess is the word I would say. And part of that starts with, you know, filling our minds with the word. We know that as Christians. Yeah, go ahead.
No, what I'm hearing though in my head right now is I'm thinking apathy, right?
Uh-huh.
Like apathy is what's going to keep us going. Nah, man, I'm good. Like, relax. I'm good. You know, I got to enjoy life. I got to be, you know, if I'm not doing all these things, I'm not going to be happy, you know, so I'm good with where I am. And, you know, so, you know, just being apathetic. And I feel like we've been conditioned as men over the last, especially the last, I would say the last 20, 30 years, I would say that we've been conditioned to be apathetic. When you look at TV and movies, and you look at the men, and a lot of times it's portrayed in a way that it makes us laugh. It makes us kind of like cackle, you know, like, look, you know, but in all reality, the men that we're watching, that are supposed to be entertaining to us, if you ask yourself, like, is that really what we want to be as men? You know, is that really? Because the men that we're watching they're stupid and they're apathetic and they're lazy, and you know, their wives have to lead the home and make the decisions, right? So we've been conditioned to think that that's normal. That's what it's supposed to be. Yeah.
I can remember even as a kid, my dad talking about that, how the shows changed. You know, there was no longer the Andy Griffith, you know, the male lead figure, and you know, it became where the guy's dumb, the guy's just stupid. I mean, he's made fun of, he's walked all over. And I can remember even as a kid, my dad's talking about how he saw that change in television and how it just had an impact. So I guess my question for you now is, let's say somebody hears this. Let's say somebody is kind of coming to grips a little bit here, or maybe they've been on this path for a while. What are 2 or 3 things you think they could do to start redirecting, to start righting that ship, if you will?
Well, the first thing is you gotta start, again, when you start acknowledging who you really are, when you start really being honest with yourself about when you draw the picture of yourself in your mind, you have to be able to see, hey, this is where I am.
Yeah.
And you got to start talking to the Lord about that, right?
Yeah.
Like you gotta start communicating, like, hey, God, listen, I want to acknowledge right now that this is where I am, and I'm not happy about it. I'm not satisfied with being who I am, being where I am. I'm not satisfied because I want to be the man that you want me to be. I want to be the man who understands what my purpose is and how to effectively live out that purpose. And if there's things that are in the way, God, I need you and your Holy Spirit to help me have the strength and the clarity and the wisdom to move that stuff out of the way. And if I have a day where I'm not on my A game, I ask you for your mercy and your forgiveness, but help me to recognize that. Man, we do such a bad job of asking, like God wants his children to ask for help. I was talking to a guy about this the other day, and he just goes, he just looks at me and says, that's just not the way I am. I am who I am.
A lot. Yeah.
Yeah. He just says, hey, I am what I am. This is how I am. And I'm going to tell you, I feel like that breaks God's heart. I'm just going to tell you. I really do. I feel like he's saying, listen, I'm here to help you. As your father, I want you as my child to want me to help mold you and grow you. I mean, I don't have children, but can you imagine your child looking at you and saying that to your face and saying, God, or I'm sorry, one more time.
Justin.
Yeah, but saying, Daddy, I don't want your help. I don't want you to have any influence in my life. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
It would break your heart as a father. Yeah. And we do that to God when we don't come to him and say, God, help me with this. Help me become the man that you want me to be so that I can understand and effectively live out the purpose that you have for my life. That's the first step, is you got to start communicating with God about being honest about where you are.
Yeah, that's good.
And that's tough. That's tough. And the other thing at that point is you have to create goals for yourself. You got to say, well, where do I want to be? And if you don't know, man, that's where you've got to start not only asking for God to help you to understand and have that understanding and that mental picture in your head of where you want to go and where you want to be, but also it's so critically important to be connected and surrounded by other men who are going to help you with that as well. And that means that you have to start acknowledging what you're putting in your cup. That you have to acknowledge, like, well, maybe I need to let go of some of this other stuff so that I have the time to invest in relationships with other men.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, man, it's tough. I'm telling you this. It is so hard for me personally to find other men that want to grow, who want to sacrifice time because they want to be at home with their friends. I hear it all the time, man, I got to go home, be with my kids. I got to go home, be home with my wife all the time. I got to work more. I got to, but the reality is that they don't want to miss that game, man. They don't want to miss that round of golf. They don't want to miss, whatever it is, like fill in the blank.
Yeah.
But you have to make it a priority to find other men who want to love you, who want to help you understand where you are, help you understand where where you want to go and how to get there.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the number two thing, is that you got to surround yourself with the right people. I'm going to tell you, man, I used to tell guys in the jail all the time, and guys that were in the back of my patrol car that were in handcuffs, I used to have conversations, and I cannot tell you how many times these guys looked at me and said, man, I was just with the wrong people.
Yeah.
You know? And then, man, the third thing is, I would say the third thing is understanding that it's not something that happens just instantly. You know, it's a process.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a little quicker for some people than it is others. But I can tell you right now, at 41 years old, man, I'm nowhere close to where I thought I would be at this point.
Yeah.
But I can't spend time being so down on myself about that. I'm not where I want to be in so many areas of my life, so many areas. But I can't sit there and work myself into a funk of depression and anxiety and bitterness and you name it, to the point where to where I'm spending so much time feeling like a useless sack of garbage that I'm not making progress.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to just keep going. You got to keep going, you know? And,
yeah. And that goes back to discipline too. I mean, the discipline to stay the course. I mean,
right.
All that I try to tell my kids a lot of times when they do things or we have them do things they don't want to do. I often use the example of, you know, hard work usually, you know, in the end reaps good things. I mean, now it's going to be hard to get to that point. You're not going to always want to do it, but it takes discipline to say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it the best of my abilities. And in the end, you know, sometimes it's a pat on the back. Other times, you know, it's a financial reward, whatever it may be. My oldest, she does this kind of, you know, baking little side thing that she's been doing for 4-H, and it's just kind of turned into something she enjoys doing. And I said, and there's days she doesn't want to do it. Like there's days, you know, people give her an order and she just, man, I'm tired, Dad. I've been doing school all day, all this other stuff. I'm going to hang with friends. I'm like, yeah, but you have that order. And if you get that done, when you get that money at the end of it, you're pretty happy with how that feels. And she's like, yeah, you're right. And I said, you know, it's a discipline to see it through all the way. And I think that's something that applies into adulthood very much. I mean, you and I mean, a lot of what we're saying here, it takes discipline to stay the course. And
absolutely.
Because you're right. It's not always easy. And everybody, I like to say a lot, everyone's spiritual journey is unique to them in many ways because they have different backgrounds, they have different temptations, they have different things they have to deal with that may be unique to them that we don't ever have to deal with, that we've never had to, you know, fight against or whatever it may be. So I always reiterate the fact that we need to show discipline. And we must trust the Spirit that He will help us do that.
Absolutely, 100%. And, you know, something I'm thinking about also is that, man, you know what the wonder, I used to tell youth this all the time, particularly the troubled youth. And, man, it's crazy. Like, if I would just apply all the things that I have. But anyway, I used to tell people all the time, man, you know what the wonderful thing is if you're having a bad day and you're being a slacker and you've got a bad attitude or you just mistreated somebody or you've fallen off the wagon with your goals, whether they be spiritual, emotional, physical, whatever goals, or you haven't been connected to that person in your life that you need to be connected to. The amazing thing about it, brother, is that all you got to do at that very moment is say, you know what, I'm going to do it. And you do, like right then and there, you go, you self-correct and you go like, yeah, I'm not where I need to be. And you instantly at that moment, you can change, you can make a different decision, you know? Dude, we're never doomed. You know, it's not like, well, I messed up. So, you know, I'm just ruined, you know?
Don't put it off until Monday. Start right now. Like you God's given you the grace to do it right now.
Right.
Like You don't have to go through somebody or do something special, seance or some weird thing like that. Just get after it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, just start today. That's all you have to do. Start right now where you are, and you would not believe what that could do for you. And I mean, your family will only benefit. If you're growing, your family will grow too.
Right.
Because
I mean, for me, I'm going to tell you personally, be very transparent here. I'm in the worst physical shape I've ever been in my life right now. Okay. And I can sit around and I can work myself into a funk of depression thinking about that. Right.
Yeah.
Or, and I can think about the fact that, man, I ate Bojangles this morning and I probably shouldn't have, you know what I'm saying? Nothing against Bojangles, but, but I'm just saying, maybe I ate a really unhealthy meal, and, I'm like, oh man, I'm just such a, I don't, and I start like talking down to myself, and just, but you know what, it's okay, because tonight I can eat a healthier meal, right? Tonight I can go for a walk. Tonight I can make some progress, and it's okay. You know what I'm saying? Just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and surround yourself with people that are gonna keep you on that track. People who are gonna ask you the tough questions. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I want to say one more thing.
Yeah.
That you when you sent me the question, you said, is there anything else I want to talk about?
Yeah.
And by the way, if you have any more questions, I'm all ears.
Shoot. Yeah. Go ahead.
So one thing that has really been on my heart lately is that I feel like we as men really have to somehow start making more progress and understanding how necessary and valuable it is for men to be able to have true godly masculine intimacy with one another. And sometimes when you say intimacy, that when you use the word intimacy, it's automatically associated with sex.
Yeah.
It's automatically associated as a sexual nature.
Yeah.
But that's not the kind of intimacy I'm talking about, obviously. Okay. But our world has been so over-sexualized. Our culture has been so over-sexualized. And naturally now everything, you've got homosexuality that's been not only accepted, but and applauded, but now you've got to promote it in everything, everywhere. Okay. And what that's done is that has really, really messed up the ability for straight, godly men to be able to be intimate with one another.
Yeah.
And man, I'm gonna tell you, there's a lot of guys out there who are really hurting, who have a lot of deep pain, who have a lot of, serious issues when it comes to depression and anxiety, who have just broken hearts. And we as men have to come to a place where we understand that not only is it okay, but it's absolutely necessary for us to be able to wrap our arms around one another.
Yeah.
And console one another. And it is okay. It's good for men to be able to hold one another up. And to, for one man to be able to lay his head on another man's shoulder and cry because he needs to. And that's something that we've lost because we're afraid as a culture now. Straight godly men are afraid to appear a certain way.
Yeah.
And we've got to start moving. We've got to start promoting appropriate godly intimacy with one another again. There's a lot of guys out there that they did not have an appropriate godly father figure or man in their life. And as as men, we don't have to I'm gonna tell you, especially for me personally, working in law enforcement, man,
Yeah.
that profession, the law enforcement, first responders in general, law enforcement, firefighters, EMS, man, there's so many people that are really, really, truly in bad shape, like in their minds and in their hearts.
Yeah.
But they don't ask for help. They don't, they don't have that support system. They don't have people that they can go to love them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And sometimes, man, you really need, it is a need that you sometimes more than people realize. They need that physical touch.
Yeah.
So I don't have scripture to back that up, but I know from my own experience, that it's a need, and it's something that we as men need to start correcting.
Yeah. Well, I think you see even a glimpse of it there in the garden with Jesus and his disciples. I mean, he's asking them, he's begging them to pray for him. And they keep falling asleep, and he goes back again and tells them to pray for him because he knows what's coming, and he knows, he needs that, and he desires that of them, that intimacy that I think that you're talking about. And I think part of the problem is it's viewed as weakness, and people will view you as weak if you go down that trail, if you're too revealing, I guess. And I think in guys in particular, we're very selective who we open up to. And I don't think all that's bad, because
no, it's not.
You need to have guys you can trust.
There's wisdom in that. Yeah.
Yeah. You need to have that kind of inner circle, if you will, right. Whoever that may be, but you need to have it. Because you need somebody you can call anytime, any day. You need to build that with somebody or right. a group of people,
Absolutely. I've said it for a long time, man. We're all going to have to sit in the dark sometimes, but we shouldn't have to sit by ourselves.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, man.
That's good. Hi,
what else you
Andrew.
got?
We're over an hour here, and I don't want to keep you all night.
You're going to have to edit, man. Edit.
Yeah. No, this is good, man. I've really enjoyed this. We've hit some really hard, weighty topics, and I think, one thing I've enjoyed about doing this with a lot of guys is that it shows other guys that they're not alone, that I can guarantee there's a lot of other guys out there thinking a lot of these same things, or looking for answers, or looking for somebody just to say, it's okay to have a group of guys that you can talk to, or somebody you can talk to that you can pour out your soul to, if you will. You know right. what I mean? Absolutely. I think some guys, they need to hear that, because they've been told their whole lives, guys don't do that. Right. So they need to hear things like that. And I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I really appreciate you doing this with me. And I want to give you, a few final words here. Just what's your last words to the guys who are listening tonight or today?
Well, I wanted to tell you that, first of all, everything I've told you tonight, everything I've said, I want you to really, and I want anybody who's listening to this to know that I don't ever tell anybody anything that I'm not telling myself first. Everything I promote goes through me first. Everything I advertise and promote and say and put out there, man, I'm having to tell myself that before I tell anybody that. So please understand that this is nothing I say is ever out of condemnation. Nothing is ever out of judgment or pointing fingers. Man, I am a extremely flawed, ridiculous excuse of a man. And I ask for God's grace and mercy and forgiveness every day. And, man, it's a battle, and I do remember you saying, asking on the list of questions that, what is my intention for my content when it comes to Instagram or Facebook or whatever? I'll tell you, man, let me say this, that I'm trying to start. I have a men's fellowship group that meets at my house, and it's called Forge 40. Okay. And I'm not really going to try to get into why it's called Forge 40 at this point, but that's what it's called. But man, whether it be my relationship that I have with these guys who meet with me at my house, or whether it be the stuff that I'm putting out on Instagram or what have you, man, my goal really at the end of the day is just to encourage and motivate other men to try in some way to make progress towards understanding what God's purpose for their life is and how to effectively live out that purpose. And it's not something that I think that we're supposed to do by ourselves, So I'm very, very thankful that you reached out to me and that you're doing what you're doing. My heart is with you. I'm proud of you, and I'm praying for you. And any other man out there who is waking up with intentions of trying to help other men be more closely connected to God and their purpose. So thank you for that.
Yeah, you got it, Andrew. I really appreciate that. I think that I'll drop all your Instagram in the description and all that, and I'll encourage guys to reach out to you if they have questions or any of those sorts of things, or they just need somebody to talk to. It sounds like you might be the guy to do that.
Well, one more thing I will say is that I don't ever want, I really pray that God never, I don't have a problem with at some point if my Instagram starts growing or if it starts working in a way that more messages are getting out there. Admittedly, I'm not really pursuing that at this moment. I'm not saying I don't want to, but it's just, I haven't done that lately. But let me say this to all the guys out there like yourself who are putting content out there. I just want to encourage you from the bottom of my heart to make sure that what you're putting out there is not for the sake of trying to be Instagram famous. That you're not trying to create a big logo for yourself, a big name for yourself so that you can be popular, so that you can, people can look at you and go, ooh, look at this guy and what he's doing. And, there's no judgment in what I'm saying. I'm just saying, make sure that your intentions are not to create some kind of celebrity status for yourself, because what it should be is that at the very moment that the internet doesn't work and Instagram doesn't work, Facebook doesn't work, TikTok doesn't work, whatever, as soon as that stuff shuts down, it should not change anything you do.
Yeah, that's good.
So thank you.
We need a dose of humility a lot of times. Yeah. It's funny because I was joking with somebody the other night about, it's just another avenue to get the word out, like to try to encourage men. But at some point, I'm sure accounts like mine, some of the things you post as well, we're going to get blocked. We're going to get, we're going to get taken down, put in, Instagram jail or whatever. At some point, I already get messages flagged. Guys will send me stuff like, hey, this got flagged, and I have no idea what was wrong with it.
Right.
One of them was a dad teaching a kid how to ride a bike, and it got flagged and marked.
How dare you?
Potentially harmful. I was like, okay.
Hey, listen, man, I love you. I appreciate you. Yeah. I pray God's favor over Be a Man Bam.
Hey, thank you, Andrew.
Man,
I appreciate it, man.
If you need anything at all, don't hesitate to reach out. And for anybody else, hey, man, I'm always shoot me a message. If you need some encouragement or you just want to tell me how stupid something I said was, that's awesome too. But man, I love you and I appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And right back at you.
All right. Have a good night, man. Thank you.
You too.